Going second in Yu-Gi-Oh! Can be daunting, especially in an explosive format that puts you at the mercy of the hand traps you draw. However, with correct sequencing, you can put up a fight with whatever 5 cards you open, and today I want to showcase that by analyzing some of my White Forest replays when going second. So let's not waste too much time about me talking about it when I can show you instead. But first, here's the deck list. The deck list is currently a work in progress, so there's not too much to talk about since the last time I spoke about the deck, so I'm just going to quickly touch on some of the changes and things that I'm experimenting with. So I've included Russia into the main deck. This is something that I wasn't playing, and I kind of recognized after playing this deck for a while that in a lot of situations you kind of want to have a pure extender, and this kind of helps because it's so searchable, and it also has the benefit of being a level 4 tuner, and I happen to be playing Psychic and Punisher, which happens to be one of my win cons in a lot of scenarios, so playing the one is never bad. Otherwise, I think the list I dropped from a 43 to a 42. I ended up cutting all copies of the Book of Eclipse and replacing them with 2 Dark Ruler no more. Well, I believe I was playing 1 copy of Dark Ruler no more, so I cut the 3 copies for 1 Dark Ruler, the Russia, and then just the 3rd one completely to make it 42. Now, I do like the 2 Dark Ruler in the main because it is so good against Yami, K9. Basically, there's so many decks that this works against, but it has the issue that it doesn't really do too whole lot against Vanquish Soul because they can just tag out, and I kind of miss the Book of Eclipse, especially after the results of YCS Bologna. We see the K9s again on the rise, and you kind of want to have something to help you during turn 0, and Book of Eclipse being a card that doesn't target is pretty good, so I might go back to that. We'll see how things go. Possibly thinking about cutting the 3 Impoms for Book of Eclipse for the reason that it feels better, this format, but I'm also a little bit afraid to do so because the Impom is just so good against helping you out of weird scenarios against things like Spell Lock, Spell Canceller, and it's good against Lunalight and quite a few decks, so even though it's low impactful, it kind of has its place. In the extra deck, I am now playing 1 Chorozo, and this is something that a lot of you recommended that I include in the deck because it turns Wanted into a starter, and I agree. There has been like 1 or 2 games that I won because I only had Wanted in my hand as like the only playable starter, and this just got me full combo. But it isn't a clean starter, so for those of you who don't know, the line requires you to have Wanted plus a discard for Black Witch and another monster for Hollowed Azamina. So it is like a 3-card combo. I'm not playing a whole lot of monsters either, so I think there is a world where I kind of make space for Droll as well, and then this becomes more viable. But like I said, there's only like 1 or 2 scenarios where I had to make it, and granted it won the games for me, it still felt a bit strange, so I'm still on the fence, but I can see why a lot of you vouch for it. I am playing Pep, which is something that a lot of decks aren't because it's very good against Lunalight, and there's so many decks that just struggle to out it that it becomes a win con in and of itself. It's also resistant to board breakers, which is great. Speaking of board breakers, I am now playing Scourge in the side deck because, well, a lot of decks are still playing board breakers and you only generally have 1 negate, so playing the Scourge helps with that because it's just another negate. It does cost you a synchro though, but I guess you can't be too fussy in those kind of situations. I'm playing the Dark Hole for Branded, specifically to out the Ido statue, and then just basically every breaker that I can for when I'm forced to go second, just give me more versatility, and then to side out the 3-4 loss and the Dark Ruler. I have a few going first options in Black Goat, Woes, Anti-Spell, Solemn Judgment, Karma Cannon, Dimension Ground, and Mischief of the Dome. So generally I just side in a combination of these 5, and it seems to be working pretty well for me. Well, these 6 because now I have Scourge. But yeah, it does feel somewhat iffy, the side deck. I mean, again, I'm just playing pure engine at this point. So yeah, this is the part that I'll probably change the most. I know Rosalie played this deck at Bologna. She hasn't released the list yet, so I'm just kind of waiting on that to see if there's anything that we can kind of learn from that. But for now, this is kind of what I've been tinkering with, and it'll probably change a lot in the next couple of weeks. So the first replay I want to show you is against K9 Crystron, and I happen to be going second. If you look at my hand, you'll notice that I have a stunning lack of non-engine, which is exactly not what you want when you're playing against the deck that is infamously known to, you know, kind of cheat out turn skips and locks. So we start into things. As you can see, they're going first, they draw for turn, they have the card, they lead with Noroi. And at this point I'm feeling a little bit anxious because Noroi is one of their best starters for one. And it also has the secondary effect to look at your opponent's hand. So if they look at my hand and they notice that there's no non-ancient, they notice that I'm playing White Forest, and they notice that most of my hand is spell cards, there's a little annoying card in their deck that can kind of lock me out of the game, right? Well, it should, but we managed to weasel our way through it, and you guys will see as we get into things. So they start to play, they summon out the Lupus, they overlay for Ripper, they use Ripper's effect to search for Lantern, they will then summon the Lantern, summoning back out the Noroi. I think at this point they will then use the Lantern's effect to search for the Case of K9, they'll activate Case of K9, search for Izuna. And from here they will use Noroi's effect, get rid of the curse, and you'll see them at hand shuffle because they actually got a look of my hand. And this kind of gives them all the information that they need to how to sequence their board. Of course, if I was playing something like Draco Tail, they would not go for the spell canceller, they would choose to go for something else, such as the Infinite Line. So anyway, later on their play, they'll reveal that they are playing the K9 Crystron version of the build through Yugioh, who summons out the Salvador, who sends Self-Fafnir and Inclusion to grave. They'll then overlay for Riverstormer, they'll do the Riverstormer line to search for Scrap Recycler. They'll normal summon Scrap Recycler, well, my bad, they will go into the Platinum Gadget because they already used their normal summon on the Noroi. So they'll link off into the Platinum Gadget, they'll use Platinum Gadget's effect to special summon out the Scrap Recycler, and because this doesn't care how it was summoned, it will just send a machine from deck to graveyard. So they choose for the Thesaurus, they then link off into the Clockwork Knight, and I believe they're going to use the effect of Clockwork Knight to summon back out the Scrap Recycler from grave, which they do. The Scrap Recycler's effect will activate again, and this will allow them to send the spell cancellers to graveyard. From here they can use the grave effect of Self-Fafnir, pitch into Crystron, summon itself, destroy itself, and then go in for the rank 5 Princess. Use the rank 5 Princess's effect to summon out the spell canceller, and then banish the Inclusion to special summon out Sostaros from grave. So from here it doesn't look too good. I will of course draw for turn, and it's another spell card. So at this point I'm panicking because most of my hand can't be used, but then I realized I may be out of spells, but I'm not out of options. And I happen to notice that Spell Canceller has very poor stats, so if you find yourself in this situation, if you get a monster big enough to beat it, you're probably fine, which is exactly what I do. So I go for the Duel, I use its effect to set to the Deception. I don't activate the Deception because I do not want to trigger this Thesaurus' effect. And cool thing about Black Witch is, well, I suppose I could have used it because their field was full, they wouldn't be able to summon anything, which is exactly why I chose to set the Deception. But the cool thing about summoning Black Witch is that it doesn't start a chain, so that they couldn't negate it with the Ripper. So I'll attack into the Spell Canceller, they of course will survive a turn. This procs the effect of the Princess, which allows them to search for a level 5, which they choose for an Izuna. And things are okay from here. I'll then go to main phase 2, lead with the Dark Ruler no more, and activate the Deception. Use the Deception. Well, first when you try, I had to bait the Ash Blossom, which is why I activated the Wanted from hand. From here, then I would then use the Deception to add the Hollowed, use the effect to summon out to the Omni Negate. And from here, I can do the 1-card combo with the field spell card, which is to search for the Sylvie. Use the Sylvie to search for Tails. Because I already have the Azamina in hand, I decided to use it early to kind of force my opponent to do some things, but even if they don't get rid of it, I have the Tails to push through. So on the side of the field, I go for Rochea. I use Rochea's effect, sending the Tails, and from here I make a bit of a misplay. Well, a few misplays actually. So I use the effect of Azamina to search for Sinful Spoils, because, well, Subversion, because I kind of want to clear the board as best as I can. I've already used my battle phase, and there's a couple of things that I want to get off the field. I want to get the Ripple off the field because, well, it has an effect to search. It's also a negate, which is kind of problematic when it gets its effect. Like the Scrap Recycler, nobody gives a damn about. Trastaros has some effect, so you can summon out a Crystron from deck and then Synchro. So I wanted to get rid of that, and they also had 2 Crystrons in names in graveyard, especially the Salvador, which can be used to destroy the Trastaros to summon itself. The Riverstormer wasn't too much of a problem, so I just added this to hand because I wanted to start cleaning up the board, but I made a bit of an error in judgment, which you'll see in a minute. So obviously on res I'll set the Tails. I'll then use the effect of Hollow to add itself back to hand, just so I can discard it for LZ. I'll summon LZ to my side of the field. I will activate Subversion to put the Ripper back into the Spell Trap Zone, which feels a little sus. I realized in this moment that I couldn't target the Typhon, or rather I should have noticed, but I was just trying to clean up the board, and I was like, I can pop the Typhon later, but you know, we'll see how things go. I'll then use the effect of Deception, well not Deception, of Wanted to get a draw. I will then use the summon out my White Witch, do the White Witch line, which gets you to Filia. I'll then special summon out my Duel Queen, use Filia to summon back, well, to add Vengeance. Off the Queen I added Callby to hand, which we will use. The idea was if I have the Callby in hand, during their turn I can stop one of their Crystron effects in grave, depending on which one they activate first, which puts them in a bit of a bad situation. So I summon out the Vengeance, and this is where I make a colossal misplay, right? So I sequence incorrectly because I banish the Filia, and I'm now using the banished effect to increase the attack of all my DLL monsters by 500, which obviously means I cannot use the effects under Typhon. Now I thought I could play around this by being clever by using the effect of Vengeance in chain to pop the Typhon, forgetting that the Typhon has a Lupus as material, meaning that it cannot be targeted. So this is a bit of a big mistake that I made, because the idea was to use the Vengeance to pop the Typhon, summon out Poplar, the White Forest, from the extra deck, use the effect of Poplar to scale 2 of these, and then immediately go into a Doom Dragon to get rid of one of the monsters on the field. Probably I would have gotten rid of the Princess. I know I just mentioned that Thesaurus is a problem, but if Thesaurus is in the Spell and Trap Zone, they can still just do whatever they want to with it. So yeah, and then afterwards I'd have then Synchro Summoned into the Vengeance Dragon and use the Vengeance Dragon to put one of the Crystrons in the grave in the Spell and Trap Zone, limiting what they can do during their turn. So big error of judgment on my side. I misplayed, but it turns out to be okay because they spent so much gas in this board, but we'll just, you'll see how it plays out. So I'm forced to pop something else. I decided to go for the Princess because I didn't want them to summon something back from grave. I summon the Pulver to my side of the field, and yeah, this kind of exposes me to the fattest Zeus of my life because I can't pop the Typhon when they attempt to go into battle phase, and I don't really have anything to stop it otherwise unless I wanted to preemptively Synchro Summon, but even if I Synchro Summon, I can't use the effect of Vengeance because it has 3000 attack. So the attack taken on my Ilia Sylvia. They'll then go to main phase 2, summon out Zeus, and they'll use Zeus's effect, which kind of cleans my entire board. I will of course chain the effect of Curse to banish the Salvador from their graveyard. Then they'll then go from Izana. They'll then use the effect to send a K9 to grave. They'll then summon back out the Lupus. I will then from this position decide to regenerate some resources, so before they can get an Xyz out, I special summon out the Sylvie, which then allows in the new chain the effect of LZ to add herself to hand. Something I forgot to say is when the Ilia Sylvia was destroyed by the battle by the Typhon, I got to add a Morian from deck to hand, or any simple spoils card. I just wanted a trap to kind of bring back my Vengeance, and it also paired one well with the LZ, which I was planning to get back in a bit later. They go for Vimana, which kind of telegraphs that they're out of the good rank 5s in the extra deck. Or, you know, they're just trying to get up a monster negate. They summon out to the Vimana. Again, nothing too crazy here. I'll use the effect of LZ. They have to negate this. They'll then summon back the Lupus in sequence and go for a... what's this? The Balance. So they've got one interrupt left in their field. I'll then normal summon. Go into a Chaos Angel. Summon out to the LZ. Use the effect to fusion summon. Summon out to the Mumu. And then I'll use Hollow Chain. Once it add back the Black Witch from graveyard, summon out, use the effect of Hollowed again to summon out the Omni Negate, and then use the effect of Black Witch to set something. Which I choose for simple spoils, but I think it's one of the last options that I have left in deck. I'll then summon back out the Sylvie and Synchro Summon to Psychic and Punisher. This is one of the reasons why I play this card. It is absolutely great at closing out games. It's also such an impressive tower. I'll then use the effect of Wanted again to get a draw. It's going to be something pretty good. I'll start the battle phase and I'll use the effect of Punisher because my life points are currently at 1500. It gains a lot of attack, pushing it up to 10,000. I'll attack into the Valon, and I know that the Vimana, because I've read it before, has the effect to sort of increase the attack or something, which is why I chose to prioritize the Ilia Sylvia, or rather just to get the Ilia Sylvia on my board instead of just going straight for Psychic and Punishment. I attack into it, they'll use the effect of the Vimana, I'll negate and attack for exactly lethal. The next replay I want to show you is against the same Crystron K9 player. and I happen to 2-0 them. We go into the second game after siding, and of course I'm going second because they want to start again. And this time I happen to draw the Infinite Impermanence, which is one of the non-engine I'm playing in the deck. So they'll lead with Scrap Recycler, which feels very weird, right? Because normally they want to use their normal summon on something like a K9, or, you know, it's just a very weird way for them to start. I've imagined from the situation that if I Imperm them, that there isn't much that they can do, because Imperm is not a monster, so that if they have like the Azamina in hand, they can't summon anything. That the Lupus in hand, they can't summon it. And the only thing that they could possibly have from the situation is possibly a Self-Apnea or an Occlusion. So I kind of rolled the dice because I'm like, you know what, I'll cut them off early, and if it works, it works. And it turns out I was rewarded because it does work, and then they end up activating Clockwork Knight, which feels somewhat impactful because of the attack reduction. I guess it just makes OTK a bit harder, but I know that the logic behind playing this is that it kind of hurts Yami. And maybe they were just unfamiliar with the matchup, and they were like, you know what, maybe my deck needs a lot of spellcasters and synchro, or spellcasters and illusions as material, which is true for the fusion monsters, but a lot of time I'm summoning them out of Azamina. And for the most part, if you look at them, they're all generic. They don't really care about the type of my monster, just so long. Well, I think Chaos Hand is about the only one but he cares about attributes. So anyway, they do that, that's about all that they can do. I'll draw for turn, and as always, you always draw the Four Loss as the 6th card, but I guess it doesn't matter because we had the Black Witch again, so this allows us to just discard it for free to summon ourselves. I'll then go for Deceptions. I'll activate Deceptions, and I'll chain Wanted to add Vengeance. So the reason why I'm doing this way is so that I have a way to get the Hollowed without getting rid of my Slaughter. So that was the logic here, why I decided to do this before the Hollowed. And it turns out I'm somewhat punished because my opponent has the Droll, and normally Droll would kind of be the end for White Forest. But no, it turned out to be fine because I ended up having the Imperming Graveyard, so I could just special summon out the Vengeance, and with the Black Witch in the field, it means I already have 2 Duel monsters on the side of the field, so I can use its effect. So from this position, I'm feeling a little bit confident because if they summon out the Lupus, I can just chain this effect to the Lupus to pop it, and they don't get to Exceed Summon. I normal summon out the Estella, and this is one of the reasons why I'm thinking about playing more Estella in the build, because it kind of plays through Roll, or at least gives you some plays through Roll when you go in second. So I normal summon her. I'm going to use her effect, pitching the card in my hand to summon out a Sylvie. This will of course set the tails again. Sylvie can't search, but we can go into Rachea. I just decided to go this for the attack, and because it also has sort of destruction protection. So I summon her to my side of the field, and my opponent will then summon out the Lupus, which was a big misplay on their side, because I believe they summon out the Lupus to their side of the field, and realizing that they don't have another rank 5 or another level 5 to make a rank 5, and realizing that I haven't summoned from the extra deck twice for them to go into Typhon, I can just immediately pop it with the Vengeance, which I do, and this allows me to summon out, pop out the White Forest, and with 2 White Forests in the graveyard, I can immediately use its effect to scale them, which I do. And then I can go into Vengeance Dragon to put the Scrap Recycler into the Spellcaster. And from here, once again, I have enough damage for exactly a lethal. I'll attack for 1-5, for 2-5, 2000, and 2-5. For this replay, I ended up playing against Blue Eyes Prime Mind, and I'm going second again. This was, I believe, during game 3, so it was one of the ways I was able to just close out the match. And I have the Impermanence non-engine, and otherwise, it's a bit of a weird situation where I only drew Diabol cards. I have Vengeance, White Witch, Curse, which I would normally send off the White Witch, and Wanted. So this is also post-siding, so I believe I don't have the Morian left in my deck, because I generally side that out when going first. So opponent will start their turn. They will lead with a Roar, I believe it's called a Roar, to summon out the Blue Eyes. They'll then normal summon Effect Veiler, and they'll link it off for a Spirit Dragon. When they normal summon the Effect Veiler, I kind of get thinking, and I thought they would immediately go into the Azure Eyes. I think it's called Azure Eyes, or the Indigo Eyes, whatever it's called, the level 9 Synchro. And instead they choose to link it off for a Spirit Dragon. So this kind of telegraphs that they're in a weird situation where they either need the second effect, they were trying to go for somewhat of a high roll hand because they're trying to get the field spell on the field so that they can normal summon another level 1 from their hand to then perhaps make a second copy of Blue Eyes. So I decided to just gamble here, and I used the Imperm on the Spirits, and I was somewhat rewarded, right? So I ended up in a decent situation. It turns out that they had nothing else, so I say it was a good situation, a good move, but I guess it didn't really accomplish too much. So They end up sending 3, and I'll proceed to start my turn. So I'll lead with White Witch to send Curse, because from the previous games they were kind of wary of Curse, because Curse is what allowed me to get my win con, in my opinion, which is Vengeance when going second. So they'll Imperm, which is completely fine. We didn't really want the effect of the White Witch, we were just trying to bait. So then I was feeling a bit extra, so I chained the Wanted to kind of fetch something, which was the Black Witch, and from here it should be more or less streamlined, right? So I add the Filius to the hand, and now they should be wary of that. So I pitch it, which should telegraph that I have the Vengeance, but I guess they were kind of afraid of what I was going to search, and I guess you get a lot of value out of a Drill Beam here, because you not only get to banish the body, but I had to discard to summon it, and you negate the effect. So prime opportunity for them to use the Drill Beam, which they do, banishes my Black Witch, and I mean from here I'm completely cool, right? Because I have 2 trapped 2 spells in the graveyard, which means my Vengeance is live. So I summon Vengeance to my side of the field, and they will immediately chain Ultimate Fusion to fusion summon out and summon Tyrant. So when they activate this, I chain the effect of Vengeance to pop something on their side of the field. I believe I choose to pop the Quick Play spell, so the Ultimate Fusion, because it doesn't really matter if I pop the monsters on their side of the field, because they can just use the Ultimate Fusion to shuffle them into the deck as material. So the reason why I do use this to pop the Ultimate Fusion is so that I can get a Synchro on my side of the field. And I choose Yugioh, which kind of puts my opponent in a weird situation, because now they can only destroy 1 card on my side of the field off the effect of the fusion. And if they choose to pop my Vengeance, it then means I get to go full combo of the Yugioh, assuming I have a Spell Trap in my hand. And if they pop the Yugioh, then during their turn I can just use the Vengeance again to pop this and something else from the extra deck. So it's either, so my opponent is in a bit of a catch-22, and that was the whole idea of the play, and they choose to send the Vengeance to the graveyard, which is completely fine. I think that's what I wanted, because now I just go for Yugioh and I go for full combo. So search for Sylvie, normal summon Sylvie, I'm going to do the 1 card combo, search for Witch, activate Witch, search for LZ, use LZ, pop in the field spell, searching for LZ Azamina. From here I can special summon LZ Azamina, go into Queen, Queen's effect will activate, allowing me to add 1 from grave, which I choose for the Imperm, and I'll search for the Subversion. I can then play the Subversion to put it back, to put the Blue Eyes into the Spawn Trap Zone, and then Synchro Summon out the Silvera, which will increase the attack of my Queen by 500, while also increasing my own attack by 500. So from here again I have exactly more for lethal, I do 8,400 damage, and it turns out to be an easy peasy matchup despite having the weird hand of just Deer Bells. The last replay I want to show you is against Branded, and I happen to open a lot of non-engine this time. I'm of course going second, and I have double Imperm, plus the Thrust, and 2 starters, which is about as good as you ever want when playing this deck. Of course, if you have another starter, that's something that doesn't require you to search directly, you're in a better situation, but you know, this deck chooses to draw in most situations, so you know, I just play for the consistency and play the terraforming. So they'll start their turn, they'll lead with the Lupa, and from here I'm going to Imperm the Lupa, because a Lupa has an Imperm shaped target on its head, and from the situation they either have the Fallen of the Virtuous, the Fallen and the Virtuous, or they don't. So I Imperm, in terms of what they do, they use it to destroy the Lupa so they get to search for Branded Fusion. From this position they special summon out a Spriggan's Kit, and they use its effect, and I decide to drop the second Imperm here because they already have the Branded Fusion. I could use it on one of the fusion monsters, but again, they have so many ways to fusion summon, I figured I just want to limit the ways in which they can and just allow the Branded Fusion to resolve. So they use Branded Fusion, and they decide to go for the Rim, set 1, and then during the invade they'll add the Fallen of the Red or Branded in Red. They'll then use Branded in Red, they got the Branded in Red off of the Albion, and they'll use the effect to add the Alaba to hand and do their normal shenanigans, which is to go into, I think it's a Syrian Dragon, and then from a Syrian Dragon into a Merjade. They'll then send a Branded opening to the graveyard so they have some kind of destruction protection. So not the scariest board, again we had double Imperm, and I'm feeling pretty confident from this position, especially when I open up a second copy of Thrust, which means that I can kind of, it's a free discard for LZ while not compromising on my other field spell, which can be used to get an extender, or Thrust, which can be used for additional removal. So I'll go with LZ, I'll summon herself to search for Solvi. I'll normal summon Solvi, and from this position my opponent had a second copy of the Fallen of the Virtues, and they use it to pop the Solvi. I think from here they kind of realized I'm playing a synchro deck, and if you can keep tuners off my field I should be kind of stymied. So that's the idea that they were going for. They use Fallen Virtues, they pop that. I then activate Tales of the White Forest, which I got off the Solvay to search for Rusia. This is a new inclusion to the deck, and it's actually proven to be so good just because of situations like this. So we'll switch this effect to special summon itself. They'll again commit into the strategy of keeping tuners off my side of the field. They'll use the effect to banish the Rusia, and from here I'm going to use Terraforming because their shields are down and I get to pop off. To go for Witch of the White Forest, I'll activate Witch of the White Forest, search for White Witch, summon White Witch, use her effect to send Curse, Curse to add Filia, Filia to search Vengeance. And from here I'm given a couple of opportunities. I could use the... So I managed to summon out Vengeance, and obviously I know not to use the Vengeance effect because they have the Branded open in the graveyard. But thankfully they use the Monsters effect and I have Thrust, so works out to be fine for me because I'll use the effect just to bait out the Branded opening, knowing that they can't, that I'm not going to be destroyed. I then search for the Merge, well not for the Merge, I search for the Talons to steal the Merge, to summon the Merge to their turn, which means it can change into attack position and again attack for lethal. So important thing to take away from you is when you're going second, Vengeance is your best card in your deck.